things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. And as always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
You never know where we're going to pop up here on the Recher podcast. We are here live at USF today. I am right outside the baseball stadium in actually the USF radio booth for baseball. If you hear some noise in the background, there's a softball tournament going on a couple of 100 feet away from me right now. Michigan is taking on Delaware. I'm actually on the call later on today at 4:30 on Bulls Unlimited as USF takes on Michigan. They're 2-0. They won both of their games yesterday. They look to go 3-0 today against the Wolverines. Again, 4:30 on Bulls Unlimited. That's why I'm here on campus. I feel like I've been here so much in the last 24 hours, and I'll be here till late tonight as the first ever women's lacrosse game will take place again on the other side of the street here at Corbett Stadium. Coach Mindy McCord and the USF Bulls, the first ever lacrosse game. Why don't you go to both? Go usfbulls.com. They have all the information on there. Go get you some tickets. A lot of great stuff going on here on campus at the University of South Florida. Shout out to Ryan B. You're first. And Dolan G. What up, Jay? Nice win by the Bulls and the Bolts. You got that right. We'll get into that here momentarily. I want to let you know who we have as far as guests on the program today. The great Ira Kaufman joins us at 12:15 of Joe Bucs Fan. The 2025 Pro Football Hall of Fame class was announced last night, as well as the MVP and all the awards given out by the Associated Press. And Ira has one of those votes to vote for all of the awards as well as the Hall of Fame. So nobody better in the Tampa Bay area to have on than our guy. Hey, Jay Bird. Hey, what are we talking about today? We're going to talk a lot baseball, talking football. Jay Bird. Ira Kaufman at 12:15 today of Joe Bucs Fan. Make sure you go check those guys out, joebucsfan.com. At 12:40 today, our guy Martin Gramatica, Super Bowl champion with our Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's there at Radio Row in New Orleans. He's been there all week. I saw a picture of him by the World Cup trophy. I got to ask Martin about that. I can't wait to chat with him at 12:40. And then at 1 o'clock today, Commissioner Chris Latvala from the Pinellas County Commissioners. You remember hearing him here on the Recher podcast first before anywhere else. He was public enemy number one. But when we had him on the program here, we started talking to him. We're like, wait a second, this guy, he really wants to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So don't listen to what a lot of people say about Chris Latvala. Of course, he has his interest and the interests of people that voted for him and the people he represents. But his life doesn't get better if the Rays leave. So the conversation that we were having yesterday about the recent remarks from Stu Sternberg over on the other side of the coast here at the owners' meetings from Mark Topkin of the Tampa Bay Times, we'll get Chris Latvala's opinion of that whole situation because the deadline is coming. We're less than 2 months away from that March 31st deadline. We've heard it from our friend Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times. The Rays have to put up or shut up here. And if not, they should sell and they should go figure something else out because as I was reading something yesterday from our friend Trisha Whitaker, who was doing a podcast Foul Territory? Check out my hair here with the great Ken Rosenthal. Rays fans don't deserve this. We don't deserve to be pushed and pulled and poked and prodded and not have any kind of semblance of what's going on with the future of this baseball team because we want baseball to stay here in the Tampa Bay area. Shout out to Big Dummy Dan and Thaw345. Always appreciate you guys. Follow me on all social media platforms. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Every single one of those things helps, just like my guy, David Terry. And let somebody that you haven't told yet. If you've told somebody about the podcast, maybe you haven't. Go tell somebody. Tell a friend. Tell a family member. Tell a postman. Tell your judge. Tell your lawyer. Tell anybody. The Recher podcast live every day at noon right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter/X. I won't be on next Friday. I have a family obligation, so no show next Friday, but I will be alive Monday through Thursday next week. All right, let's get right into it. The great Rich Hollenberg was on the call last night with Tom Crean as USF took on Temple, a double overtime thriller, 100-91 in a game where the entire night was about recognizing and honoring the late, great Amir Abdur-Rahim. And Rich said it great at the end. He says, love wins, and so does USF. That was just so poetic, so well said. And to be there from just to walk into the building yesterday at the Yingling Center and to see all of the white T-shirts on the chairs that say love wins with Amir's name at the bottom, it's hard not to get choked up. And then to be in the press conference before the game yesterday with American Athletic Conference Commissioner Tim Pernetti and Vice President of Athletics here at USF, Michael Kelly, just the ability for those guys to get together and to be able to properly recognize this guy who had such a profound impact on not just the university here, but our entire community, all class, well freaking done. So Amir has been given the Honorary Coach of the Year award from the AAC, and there's going to be a player recognized, men and women, every year that shows, like, exemplifies, kindness and toughness and selflessness throughout the entire year. So, and then also, if you saw, there was a video last night, I put it out on all of my social medias. This is why you follow me. There's a lot of content from USF last night. They donated a check, $15,000, to a charity that means a ton to the entire the entire Abdur-Rahim family. And just to be around everything last night, you could feel it. You could feel his presence in the building. You just knew he was there. And when you looked at one of the games last night, or one of the things that happened last night, was in second overtime, and it just seemed like the only guys that were going to score in that second overtime were guys that were on the team last year. Now, it was boom, here comes a three from Jaden Reed. Boom, here comes Kobe Knox driving to the hole. Two big dunks there in double overtime. There was something very poetic about the first basket going in last night. Was a corner three from Jaden Reed to put the Bulls up 3-2. And it wasn't easy. We know going against Temple, they're Temple tough, and you have to play a solid brand of basketball if you're going to come out on top. I don't care if you're at home or you're on the road. I just thought USF showed a ton of resolve, and I don't think it was an accident. I really don't. Sometimes there's things that happen that you just can't explain. And last night, watching those young men get together, they go and they lose their lead. It was very close, back and forth affair. They go to overtime. Right at the end of regulation, there's a couple of really close shots to the rim that don't go in. They don't fall for Temple. And you kind of just look around and you're like, all right, maybe there's something else going on here, right? There's just two shots they've been making all night, and they found a way to, just stay out of the hoop. And to be able to hear Brandon Stroud and also after the game, Kobe Knox with Coach Ben Fletcher, these kids have done such a great job of adjusting to the situation and being able to deal with it. It's unfathomable what these young men have had to deal with over these past couple of months. And you heard it with Jaden Reed on the program yesterday or the day before. And you heard it in the postgame last night. The support from everybody on campus, the support from the entire university for this whole team, because it's not just the kids, it's the coaches, it's the support staff. Amir made such a profound impact on everybody. And grief is not something, I don't know if it's easier to deal with as you get older, harder to get to, I don't know. Just it hits everybody differently. It hits everybody at different times. And it was just such a nice moment to be able to see Amir's family on the court, them celebrating after the game. It was, I'm so glad that I was there. I hate missing Lightning games. You guys know the Bolts mean a lot to me, and especially the entire organization as a whole. I love those guys. But last night I could not miss that at the Yingling Center. And I really hope that if you had an opportunity to go, that you enjoyed yourself and you felt that presence of Amir Abdur-Rahim, because I sure as hell did. And I know a lot of people did too. They're back in action this weekend as well. Again, go USFBulls.com. Softball at 4:30 today. Baseball, they're starting to stir. I think they're going to be hitting here in a little bit. And again, lacrosse, their inaugural game today at Corbett Stadium right here on campus. You should come check them out and support everything green and gold. They weren't the only teams that won last night. or the only team that won last night. The Tampa Bay Lightning were able to be victorious over the Ottawa Senators by a score of 5-1. That is what you want to see from the Bolts. That is the kind of effort that you need to see on a game in, game out basis, a day in, day out, a night in, night out. You need those guys to be able to perform at that level if they're going to be a serious playoff contender. You know changes are coming. You know that there's going to be trades. There's going to be guys that get called up. I've been saying it and yelling it to the high heavens, and I'm so glad that Eric Erlinson and Ed Encina both agree with me that Isaac Howard needs to be on this team. As soon as the season is done at Michigan State, an incredible season for Isaac and the Spartans, he needs to get his butt up here and thrown right into the mix there for the Tampa Bay Lightning, because that is the type of guy that will inject some enthusiasm, some life, some energy, some speed, some skill, talent. And if the Lightning can get that, watch out. You just never know what addition or subtraction helps your team as you get closer and closer to the postseason. I do think Julian Breezeball will be active on the trade market. Will he go out and get a defenseman? I saw Matt Grzelcyk as a possibility, a longtime defenseman for the Boston Bruins. I don't know if that really moves the needle for me. I want a guy that can move the puck. I want a guy that can skate. I want a guy with some size, a little bit of everything. But I think the guys right now, they're doing a decent job. I know Lilleberg is kind of public enemy number one right now, but let's not forget, this is a guy that's a physical player and a guy that is still young. This isn't a guy that's 30 years old. So sometimes you got to give, these dudes a little bit of a leeway here. Remember, Victor Hedman wasn't a finished product when he came up either, right? Mikhail Sergachev was the guy that was on the third line, splitting time. And, sometimes they would take him out of the power play. And it takes time. It takes defensemen in the National Hockey League 150 games, 200 games to really get their feet wet. So let's be patient with a guy like Emil Lilleberg. He may not be ready for this year, but to say that you just want to get rid of him altogether, you just can't teach that size and that physicality. But I like what I saw from how that team responded to not having Anthony Cirelli in the lineup. Connor Sheary, who was called up, was actually sent back to AHL Syracuse today. So that actually, depending on if it's something that Julian Breezeball is doing to, play with the cap space and get a day off of Connor Sheary being on that cap, or if that means that Anthony Cirelli will be okay and back in the lineup this weekend, either one of those is a good thing for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But for them to be able to respond to not having their best defensive forward and come out against a team like the Ottawa Senators, who they were able to beat Tuesday, but we all know Ottawa's on the second half of a back-to-back there after playing in Nashville Monday night against Stamkos and the Predators. They were going to come out like a ball of fire on Thursday, and I thought they did. First 4 or 5 minutes, the Lightning did a good job of kind of weathering the storm there, and then they were able to score in multiple ways. You get goals from Brandon Hagel. You get goals from even Eric Chernak chipping in with the empty netter. Mitchell Chafee, Braden Point. That's what the Lightning need to do. It can't just be, all right, if Kucherov and Point don't score, this team is screwed. Gensel chips in with the power play goal. We mentioned that on the program yesterday with the power play. Keep an eye out to the change with Darren Radish in that quote-unquote Stamkos office there. I like what it looked like. He needs to still stay aggressive. That's the only way it's going to work. But you're putting those other guys in positions that they're familiar with, that they've been successful in before. I don't want to see Braden Point anywhere else but in that slot area. Nobody has scored more goals in the last 5 years from that spot, whether it's on the man advantage or 5-on-5, than Braden Point. I wouldn't move him at all. Keep him there. Jake Gensel's such an intelligent hockey player. He knows when to stay on the line there, when to go back and to be able to retrieve the puck, and also when to help Braden Point out at the goal mount. So I love the intelligence, the IQ that he's brought to this team. It's phenomenal. It's people's, you play with a great player. You play with Sidney Crosby. Anybody can do that. They can't. It's not the way it goes, man. You have to be that skilled to be able to keep your level where you can't have the other guys drop their level down to accommodate you. We didn't see that with Jake Guentzel in Pittsburgh. He was really, really good. 40 goal scorer. There was not a lot of people that had hesitation or reservations about him coming here to the Tampa Bay area and playing with Point and Kucherov. I certainly wasn't one of them, and he's exceeded everybody's expectations. He is so steady. He's so smart with the puck. It's about decision-making, right? Making the right calls, when to pass, when to shoot, when to chip in. I I don't know if I'm ever going to say I'm glad that he's here and Stamkos is not, but let's just stay with 59. I'm glad he's wearing a Tampa Bay Lightning uniform. Let's get to another guy that I'm glad we're talking with. What's going on behind you, buddy? Slide that camera over a little bit. I can't see your beautiful face.
All right, wait a minute. Let me lower my shades over here. Hold on.
Yeah, we want to see that face, Kaufman. You got a face for TV.
All right, now, wait a minute. I got a little light over here. I got a little party light.
Don't put it behind you. Don't put it behind you because then it shades your face.
All right.
Put it in front of you. Or turn it off. Turn it off.
Oh, turn it off?
Yeah, turn it off. There you go. Put the camera this way so the light's not behind you. There, yeah, put that behind. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking with peanut oil, Kaufman.
All right, baby.
There he is. Thanks so much for joining us, my friend. I hope you are well. Let's get right into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The video I just saw with Shannon Sharpe surprising Sterling Sharpe. I mean, my goodness, it brought me to tears. Only 4 this year, Ira. Were you surprised that there was only 4 people that got in?
Not unprecedented, Mr. Recher. Not unprecedented, but it doesn't happen that way usually. It's been 20 years since the class has only been comprised of 4 candidates. I was a little surprised, I got to admit. Now, when the meeting ends, we don't know who's getting in. We don't know. All we know is the guys who are not getting in, basically. But we don't know who's getting in. Now, I feel bad for guys like Corey Holt, who's been waiting his turn, and Larry Fitzgerald coming in next year is not going to help Corey Holt, Reggie Wayne, or Steve Smith. You know, he's gonna vault past all of them. Okay, and I also felt bad for a right tackle for the Bengals by the name of Willie Anderson. He's been bopping around close, and you know, only getting 4 guys in, Jay, instead of 6 or 7. It means that the guys in the back of the line are still in the back of the line, and we want to get fresh bodies in that room. Guys like Simeon Rice to talk about, Jay. So, you know, the next few years, there's going to be a lot of good first-year eligible guys, and there were this year too. And it just makes it very, very tough on the rank and file.
Our guy, Ira Kaufman, joining us, longtime writer for the Tampa Tribune, and, of course, with our friends over at Joe Bucs Fan. Check everything out there at joebucksfan.com. Ira, are you surprised any of those first time? I mean, I look at Vinatieri, I look at Luke Kuechly, I look at my guy Eli Manning. Which one of those is the biggest surprise that they didn't make it on the first try?
To me, it was Kuechly. Kuechly, who had a very similar career to Patrick Willis with the 49ers, rather short, 7 or 8 years. But, Jay, the guy was a Defensive Player of the Year. He was a 5-time first-team All-Pro. First-team All-Pro. You know, Eli Manning doesn't have those that kind of hardware. What he's got is 2 spectacular postseason runs with the Giants, no question. I think Manning's going to get in, Jay, but it just didn't happen in year 1. A lot of great players, a lot of them, didn't get in on year 1. It's going to happen for Eli, but I'll tell you, Drew Brees is in the mix next year. Jay, I don't know what you think, but in terms of body of work, I don't think you can make an argument that Eli Manning had a better career than Drew Brees. Not in my book.
No, especially winning the Super Bowl, that definitely helps him. But all the passing records and just the amount of yards that he had and the success, there wasn't as many kind of peaks and valleys as we saw with Eli. Because Eli's an enigma. I really have never seen a quarterback in my life be able to miss open throws to players and throw the ball at their feet and then make 2 of the greatest throws that we're going to ever see. Like, there's nobody like Eli Manning. What was the general consensus? Was there humming and hawing? Because who did it was Gary Myers or was it Bob Glauber who did the Eli presentation?
It was Bob Glauber, ably assisted by Gary Myers. But you know the knocks, Jay. You know the unchecked boxes, the 500 career record. A lot of people say, well, he didn't have anybody with him. Jay, Drew Brees, to my knowledge, didn't have Terrell Owens and Randy Moss those years. I mean, Jimmy Graham was a pretty good tight end for a few years. Marcus Colston. Jay, I'll give you an example. Marcus Colston. If he was on the Jacksonville Jaguars those years, you know, he would have been a second, third receiver. Yeah, okay. You know, he would have caught 50 balls, you know, for 650 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was the best that Breeze had at that time. And every year, the damn Saints are either 1, 2, or 3 in total offense, scoring offense. Sean Payton had a lot to do with it, Jay, but Breeze was the mastermind. I think he's going in next year without much of an argument.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also wonder too, if you look at the other side of that argument, did Eli ever really play with an extremely gifted play caller? Did he ever really play for a guy that was a head coach or an offensive coordinator that really accentuated his strengths and had that type of Peyton, McVay, even Josh McDaniels with Brady, right? Like he didn't really have a guy like that. So I wonder if maybe next year going into that, I was like, hey, he kind of did a lot of this stuff by himself. But I'm with you. I mean, I just don't see how he gets in over Drew Brees. Maybe he'll get in with him, but not after. What about a guy like Adam Vinatieri? I mean, I think a lot of people think it's the consensus that he's the greatest kicker alive. You're talking about a multi-time Super Bowl champion. Are people just not fans of kind of the specialty, guys like that where they have to earn their keep a little bit, maybe get in second, third, fourth time?
He was close, Jay. He was close to getting in his first season. Morton Anderson, who held the scoring record at the time, he was a candidate. He didn't get in his first time. He had to wait. Ray Guy, the punter, the only punter, he had to wait a long, long time. So I think, Jay, in the back of some of the voters' minds, there's 50 voters, am I going to put a kicker as good as Vinatieri is? Probably the greatest clutch kicker. I don't think you could argue he's the most accurate kicker in NFL history. But, big kicks. I mean, that one in the snow against the Raiders, Gruden's heart, that sent the game into overtime, and then he won it with another kick, on a snow-covered field. He was close, Jake. He was close. It wouldn't shock me if he got in year 2. He was close, and Kuechly was close. So we'll see what happens. Now, one more thing, Jay, I want to say about Manning. In his favor, and I use this as part of my Rondé Barber presentation. Not all of it, but it's worth mentioning, certainly. Eli Manning's durability was off the charts. It was historic. I don't know if he ever missed a game due to injury. If he did, it was a handful.
Never did.
And so in that position, to do that, I mean, that's Brett Favre-like. It is. So you got to give him credit for the durability. And, Jay, and I made this point in the room, it wasn't just the 2 Super Bowls. It was the games that were leading up to those on the postseason run. I think he went into Dallas. They were the number 1 seed. He went into Green Bay, beat Favre. So
And Rodgers. He went into Green Bay, beat Favre and Rodgers.
Yes, it's not just the Super Bowl. He's going to have his day, Jay. He's going to have his day.
What about the voting? I know, and it was really cool. Rob Motti, our good pal from the AP, put out all the list of the voters who all voted for the awards. You were on that list of those 50 distinguished members. Really cool to see both you and Greg Allman from the Tampa Bay area. I mean, 2 of the 50 from the same city, I think is really awesome. Let's start with the MVP, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Any surprise there? I mean, Lamar first team All-Pro, but Josh Allen wins his first MVP.
That's how I had it on my ballot. By the way, Jay, as they were announcing the awards last night on NFL Honors, I turned to my wife and I said, I voted for that guy. I voted for that guy. Every one of those awards, that's the guy that I voted for. Patrick Surtain, Kevin O'Connell, Jared Verse, Jaden Daniels, all of them. Assistant Ben Johnson. I had a perfect night last night. Now, let's drill down on this MVP thing because I've seen some national guys that are well respected, Jay. They're stunned that the same person like me could name Jackson first team All-Pro, yet vote for Josh Allen for MVP. Here's my response, Jay. If you want to make the MVP award, Jay, just the best player, you might as well do away with the MVP award. It loses all its meaning. I don't approach it that way. That's why Joe Burrow didn't get much traction, even though his numbers were phenomenal. I mean, the Bengals were lousy, and they didn't make the playoffs. I'm not voting for a guy of an MVP for a team that didn't make the playoffs. Now, you remember Andre Dawson one year, Jay. He won the MVP for the Cubs. They were not a very good team, but he was by far and away the best player in the league, far and away. I don't think you can say that about Jackson over Josh Allen. So what I'm saying is, Jay, I think Josh Allen had less to work with than Lamar Jackson, and they had a better record than the Ravens during the regular season. Postseason doesn't count, but of course, the Bills beat them anyway.
Right.
I'm okay with Allen winning the MVP. I thought he was the MVP of the league.
So how does that differentiate then for somebody on the outside going? So when you're looking at all pro, you're looking at statistical individual seasons that way.
Yeah.
And then the MVP being, who is the most valuable to their team, taking everything else into consideration.
I think that's right, Jay. That's the way I look at it. The team concept enters into the MVP voting for me, and the team concept has nothing to do with my all-pro picks. Denver didn't get very far. They were good, but not elite. But I voted for Patrick Surtain over T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett. I thought he was that good. I think clearly he's the best cornerback in football. And I don't even think there's much debate about that. And I don't even think they throw at him anymore. So I'm not, turned off by him not getting 8 interceptions. They don't throw him the ball. I mean, the same thing happened to Darrelle Revis. He's that good, Surtain. So to me, if you're going to have the MVP award, to me, you got to bring in how did the team do around the guy.
Yeah, it's funny with Surtain. Like we saw him week 3, we're like, oh wow, that guy's really, really good. we knew he was good, and then we saw him because I think there was such a highlight on that game. Buccaneers 2-0, Denver 0-2. It's kind of wild to think back to week 3 and look at how both of those seasons unfolded for both of those teams, right? I mean, I don't think anybody was looking at Denver after their 0-2 with Bo Nix as the quarterback on this is going to be a playoff team this year. And then the Bucs lose that game. We're like, all right, well, what are the Bucs really about? They were able to kind of come back and win the division. You mentioned a name that has been popping up a lot recently around here, and that's Myles Garrett. This is a guy that he's a perennial candidate for the Defensive Player of the Year. The Buccaneers, I don't know if they've ever, and I'm not trying to slight Simeon Rice, but I don't think the Buccaneers have ever had a pass rusher, maybe dating back to the Leroy Selman days, right? Myles Garrett is the truth. What would you think of the Buccaneers ponying up? Maybe 2 first-round picks, swapping other picks. Like, what is your mindset, your thoughts on the Buccaneers possibly going out and trading for Myles Garrett?
I think it's going to be driven by ownership. And from what I can determine, Jay, ownership, I think they're putting all the chips in 2025. They think this team's ready to do it. And why shouldn't they think that? This is one hell of an offense, Jay. And Godwin didn't even play the last 10 games. And when he got hurt, he was the best receiver in football at that time. He was averaging 7 catches a week. Right. We talked about this on my podcast, Jay, with my 2 guys from Joe Bucs Fan. And we posed the same question. Would you give up 2 first-round picks? All 3 of us kind of said, I think we would. Jay, first-round picks, especially when you're not picking in the top 5 or 10 and the Bucs are not, that's 50. That's 50-50, Jay. Mm-hmm. And you said it. Myles Garrett is the truth. He was the number 1 overall pick for a reason, and he's backed it up. I thought from the first time I've ever seen Myles Garrett, I said that guy's an elite football player. And, he's not 33, Jay. He's not 33. He's in his prime.
Right. And
you mentioned Simeon Rice. I think it's kind of a similar situation. They had Warren Sapp. Now, I'm not trying to compare Kalijah Kancey right now, Warren Sapp. But the strength of the Buck defense is the 2 defensive tackles. And, they added Simeon Rice off Sapp's right shoulder. And a year or 2 later, they're holding up the Vince Lombardi trophy. I think, Jay, here's my most important point about Myles Garrett with the Bucs. And I think it's going to be hard to pull this off, because I think teams like Atlanta and a bunch of other teams are going to make, big pushes for Myles Garrett. Yeah. Absolutely. And teams that have better than the 19th pick than the Bucs. And that certainly could sway, Cleveland. But Myles Garrett, I think, Jay, if he was a Buccaneer at right end, you got Canty and you got Vea. Jay, I think it would really affect the way Todd Bowles calls his defense. I think it would be much more aggressive. You're not going to see, hey, take an 8-yard pass. We just don't want balls over our heads. I think a lot of that came from Bowles looking at his roster and the injuries and saying, this is probably the best way we have to win. Don't get beat by the 40-yard pass, tackle. Now, Jay, they're not a great tackling team, so that didn't really work out. But Myles Garrett, I think he changes the equation in Tampa. He does.
And I had our good buddy who used to work with ABC Action News, John Sable, on yesterday from up in Cleveland. The one thing that I heard from him that I haven't really heard from everybody else was that Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield maybe weren't, kindred spirits there in Cleveland. But you have to wonder, is that because of the surroundings, or is that because of, maybe they just didn't get along? So that could be a deterrent from Myles Garrett. But I think both those guys are probably much different now than when they, the way they were there in Cleveland. But, I look at the upcoming draft, Ira, and it'll be here before you know it. At 19, I know it's tough to call because we don't know who's going to be there, but position-wise, we're locking in on one of three, right? Pass rush, linebacker, corner.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's not an elite pass rusher. I know everybody loves the kid, Mike Green from, everybody picks a guy at the Senior Bowl. Oh, everybody wants him. But, man, they need help at that linebacker position, Ira. That's the one spot I keep looking at, whether Levante comes back or not. They need just all-around guys that can tackle and run sideline to sideline, don't they?
You're not wrong. And part of that equation, Jay, is not knowing if Servassier Dennis is ever going to put in, a 15-game season. I like what I see from Dennis, Jay, when he plays. I think he flashes potential. And you mentioned Levante David. Look, what is there? Maybe a 70% chance that he's coming back, but there's 3 out of 10 chance he retires. I mean, he's not going to go to another team. He's not. But he could retire. And that even accentuates the need for a linebacker. Here's the way I look at it. Jay, would you rather have the 5th best pass rusher in the draft? Because everybody's covering these pass rushers. And you mentioned Mike Green. Or would you rather have maybe the 2nd best cornerback? That's a tough one. I'm not a Jamel Dean fan, Jay. I don't know how you are with Jamel Dean. Even when he's healthy, I think he's okay. I got to do better than okay. I like McCollum on the other side, but I think they got to.
What does Dean do well, right? And he's the prototypical, and that's why I wonder if they start looking at corners a little bit differently, because we've seen this with Carlton Davis, we've seen it with Jamel Dean, where they don't have the greatest ball skills, right? They don't have the greatest foot speed, but they're bigger guys, and they at least try to tackle in space, because that there's corners in this league, they make business decisions, and we don't see that, for all the things. And I know when you see Jamel Dean get beat over the head or he gets hurt, but one thing we don't do is we don't see Jamel Dean. We haven't seen Carlton Davis nor Zion McCollum shy away from helping out in the run. And when this defense is at their best, that's what they do well. But Ira, if your cornerback's best skill is tackling in the run game, I don't know if that's really beneficial. You need him to cover, you need to come away with a couple interceptions, a couple pass breakups, and stay on the field. And I'm with you. Good guy, seems like a good guy, and glad that he came back, because I think it was overblown that he didn't get along with a guy like Todd Bowles. But could they do better? Do they need to be better at that spot if they're going to be an elite defense? I couldn't agree with you more.
Jay, they do their post-season analysis, and to me, it would take 20 minutes to realize the number that stares you in the face. Absolutely. And it's killing Todd Bowles every freaking day in the offseason. 7 interceptions, Jay? 7? They played 18 games this year. 18. 7 times they got their hands on the football on a pass. That's unacceptable, Jay. Now, the way you got to look at it is part of that they didn't have a consistent pass rush. You bulk up the pass rush with a Myles Garrett, you can get away with an average cornerback, Jay. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. But they got to do a lot better than 7 interceptions, because Todd Bowles is a former defensive back in this league, and he can't stomach that number.
No. And you know what? It'd be one thing if they didn't ever get their hands on the ball, but they drop interceptions, Ira. I mean, Deion Jones in the playoff game hit one right in his chest. So it's not like you never see them almost. There's a lot of, they got to come down with that. And you got to be opportunistic. And I don't think you could really use that word to describe the Buccaneers defense this year. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the Super Bowl. Chiefs, you've been following this team for a very long time. They're going to make history 3 in a row. Their NFL's already talking to Pat Riley to see if they can get in on the trademark of 3P, but they're facing a team that is built the right way, Ira. They're built in the trenches. They run the football. They got a lot of skill. I mean, this is a matchup that is going to be worth watching on Sunday. What are some of the big keys that you're looking at in this matchup?
Here's the critical points for me, Jay. Number one, if you're picking 22 starters between the two teams, the Eagles got 15 or 16 of them. That's just a fact. You got Kelsey, Mahomes, of course. You got Creed Humphrey. On defense, you got Jones and maybe McDuffie. I mean, that's the list for the Chiefs. Not much more than that. Maybe Thuney if he's playing guard. Okay. So, but Jay, at the same time, I thought the 49ers had a better roster than the Chiefs at least once, maybe twice, and lost. So you got the Mahomes factor, which is big. But Jay, here's what I'm going to say. Bottom line, and I go back 50 years with the Chiefs. I go back to Otis Taylor, Jay, and Len Dawson, and that famous picture of Dawson, drinking a 7-Up and a smoke at halftime of a Super Bowl. I'll say this, Jay, without overanalyzing this thing. I don't think they can stop Saquon Barkley. I don't like the Chiefs' run defense down the stretch. Joe Mixon ran on them. The Bills ran on them, and they ain't Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to dominate this game. Jay, I think the Eagles are going to have the ball for about 37 minutes, and as great as Mahomes is, if he gets 40, 45 snaps in this game, there's only so much you can do. I think Philly's the better team, so I think that's the way it's going to end. Philly.
Do you think if Saquon does that, wins the MVP, do you think it's the greatest season that we've ever seen from a running back?
I think you could make that argument. I surely do.
I mean, everybody says Dickerson. They say the years with Emmett because I look at individual success. I think he would have broke, even though it was 18 games, he would have broke Dickerson's record if he played that last game. Yeah. You're talking about a guy that's electric as hell. You can help in the pass game. He's a good pass protector. Like he does everything. He's a great guy, right? I think if he wins the MVP and they win the Super Bowl, you're looking at the greatest season from a running back in history. But I can't get out the Chiefs, Ira. To be the king, you gotta slay the king, and I don't know yet.
Jay, maybe the most comparable one, if Barkley turns out to be the MVP, would be maybe Terrell Davis with the Broncos, because he did it in the postseason also, and he had that great regular season, and that's why he's in the Hall. Jay, without the postseason, Terrell Davis isn't in. He doesn't have a gold jacket. But he did it a couple of times in the postseason. So I think Barkley's been incredible, Jay. Just incredible. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go 60 yards on the first freaking snap. But he's going to get his $150. And while he's on the field, Mahomes isn't. And Kelsey's a step slower than he was, a couple of years ago. And I don't like their receivers. I mean, Jay, when's the last time Xavier Worthy's on the team to catch 50-yarders? I mean, he's catching 6-yard swing passes. Right. I mean, they don't throw the ball downfield very often, the Chiefs. It's a very different offense than when Tyreek Hill was around.
The great Ira Kaufman. Go check him out. Read him everywhere. Joe Bucs fan, joebucsfan.com. You mentioned Terrell Davis and postseason success multiple times. Thought you were talking about Eli Manning there for a second, but hey.
Yeah, nicely done. Nicely done.
I love you, buddy. I appreciate it. Give Lee and Steve and everybody my love, and enjoy the game this Sunday. We'll talk soon, pal.
And say hello to Phil for me, baby.
Will do, buddy. Thanks, Ira.
Right. Take care.
All right, man. The one and only Ira Kaufman, joebucsfan.com. Listen, it's great to have a guy on the show that not only had a voice on who is going to make the Hall of Fame, and we know it's 4 people this year, and also the awards. And there are people online and saying, I can't believe that a guy like Lamar Jackson would be first team All-Pro, but not win the MVP. And as Ira articulated right there, it's not the same. You're looking at the All-Pro, and you're looking at a guy just individually statistics and what he did this year. The MVP is different. There's different criteria. There's more things that you have to factor in. Ira feels that way, and it seems like the majority of the people that vote, I feel think that same thing where you got to take the entire situation here. You have to understand what is going on, what he had to deal with. And you look at Josh Allen compared to Lamar Jackson, I think you look at one guy only, and that's Derrick Henry. And there was a three-headed monster in that Buffalo backfield, but it wasn't the same as Derrick Henry. All right, let's keep this football conversation going, and let's head out to New Orleans. Our guy, Martin Gramatica there. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, we're doing well. Just talk some football with Ira. I know you remember him covering the Bucs. He's been covering the Bucs longer than you and I have been in the Tampa Bay area.
I know, man. He's they pretty much know everything Bucs. You could know Ira's gonna know. So yes.
What did I see a picture of you with the World Cup trophy?
Yeah, man. So they brought it out because Televisa, the station that I'm working with for the Super Bowl, has signed a contract to do the Olympics for the next 7 years and also the World Cup. Sorry, there's a police escort right behind me. I'm trying to get out of here.
Fine,
I don't know how loud it is, but it's
no, you're
madness.
good. You're good. You're good. Sounds great.
Security is amazing. There's security everywhere in the city, so they're really taking this the security part serious. But yeah, so they brought the World Cup, and there's so much protocol about taking photos with it. You can't. The cameras have to be faced away from the set while they're setting it. They don't want it in movement. I mean, there's so much to it. Luckily, my agent that's with me went back down to the truck as they're recording the show and snapped a couple photos and recorded a little bit. But so that's why it's a little blurry. I'm getting a lot of comments like, "Why were you mad?" I go, "No, it's not mad. That's an intense face when I'm talking to somebody." But we had to take a screenshot of it. So yeah, so it's not the best photo, but it was great to be near it. What's funny is that one is the one for 2026. So nobody wants to touch that. Even Messi did a promotional event with it, and he's like, "I'm not touching it because that's not the one I won." So he's even that superstitious that nobody can touch it, obviously, besides Super Bowl champs, World Cup champs. But he wouldn't touch that one because he didn't win that one yet. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, if Argentina goes back to back, how crazy would that be? Listen, you got Emi Martinez between the sticks there, and Messi and the whole crew. I'm a big McAllister guy. He's been fantastic for Liverpool. I mean, Argentina. I mean, my goodness, they're stacked. Yeah. They're stacked. This is the golden era right now, and my guy Licha Martinez from Man U just got hurt, but
I know I saw that towards ACL, so we're gonna miss him. Yeah,
so bad. Yeah. But hopefully he'll be better and ready for you guys next year. Tell us, man, what's it been like there, man? Your pictures, your videos. What's been kind of the highlight of your time there in New Orleans so far?
No, I just love being around because you run it around. You run into guys that I played with that I hadn't seen in a while, and then you run into opponents that kickers that I played against, or young kickers. Now I did a little event with Cameron Dicker from the Chargers. So it's just great to be around it, and obviously covering the game is going to be awesome to do. So it's been a really cool experience.
What's your responsibilities on game day?
So game day, there's 4 of us in the booth, one play-by-play, and then the rest of us kind of commentating. So we're actually doing our trial tomorrow afternoon. So I'm not even sure exactly because there's going to be 4 of us. I'm like the guest in the crew that normally it's a 3-man crew throughout the year. They do all the regular games, and now they added me for the Super Bowl. So and then Diana Flores, who's the flag football. She won the gold medal for Mexico, so she's going to be in a separate booth as well. So she'll have some input in the game. So they bring both of us as guests for the whole week. So we're doing every show. We're doing like a morning show. We do their afternoon show. So we're on it, but busy, but a lot of fun.
That's right. Who's been like the biggest surprise or the biggest like name that you've run into so far this week?
Well, I mean, I'm not a guy that's going to approach people, but it's cool to I haven't really talked to anybody like that, but it's cool to see Emmitt Smith was around. I just saw Cam Newton was doing one of the shows in the morning. Obviously, Sapp was around. He's, running wild, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him much. I guess Deanne showed up today. So there's a lot of big names that are around Radio Row. So it's pretty cool to see those Hall of Famers.
I saw you took a picture with Pat McAfee too.
I did. That was cool. Yeah. So I thanked them for all the scholarship offers that Gaston's getting. My son G got an offer from UNC and Texas.
Nice.
And he shared. And so my middle child, he's the one that talks a lot of crap. He doesn't shut up. Right. So it was one of those days that I felt really good. At my age, you don't feel good every day. Something aches or hurts. That day, for some reason, I felt good. He's talking trash. We're on the field. I said, all right, you got an extra pair of cleats. Let's go. And then we go kick the kick, 5 kicks, and the longest was 55. And he shared it on Twitter, tagged Pat McAfee. You know, his thing is for the brand.
Yeah.
And then Pat shared it, and it got like 230,000 views.
Oh my gosh.
And I said that video got you all those scholarships, so you got to thank Pat McAfee for that. So so when I saw him, I said, I owe you one because you got my son offers.
When does he have to make his decision by? Do we know?
You know, I haven't spoken to any coaches, you know, besides obviously the USF coaches who are interested in him as well.
Right.
I have not talked to any from either North Carolina or Texas. Yeah, the 2 schools that have offered him. So I don't know. I don't know. They told him to take his time. There's no pressure, but obviously they're going to want to know where he wants to go. So they can either look at somebody else or offer somebody else. But right now they said he's their priority and their number 1 pick. You know, obviously they offered him. So we'll see. But I don't know the exact date.
Martine, if it comes down to a kick on Sunday between the Eagles and the Chiefs, who do you have more faith is going to knock it through?
Well, they're 2 excellent kickers. Elliott, he's had his ups and downs this year, but he has been solid. But I think Butker, you know, he's been in the playoffs. He's been in the Super Bowl. The last Super Bowl against Philly, he kicked a field goal with 11 seconds left. So I think Butker has the edge if it comes down to a kick.
What about the game overall? I mean, it's hard to go against the Chiefs, Martine, right, with the back-to-back champions. But if there is a team that could be built, our buddy Ian Beckles told me this the other day, there's a team that you could build to go up against this juggernaut. It is this Eagles. How do you see this game shaking out on Sunday?
Right. No, it's hard to say, you know, the Chiefs can't win this because, you know, you have number 15. So when you have 15, it's not like having Messi. You can have an average team, but you throw Messi in there, now you're elite. So that's the thing. But I feel like the Eagles, man per man, match up better, player per player, match up better. So that, in my opinion, the Eagles win this game if they can control the ball. Saquon Barkley, you know, has to have a great day and keep Patrick Mahomes on the bench. The less he's on the field, the better chance you have. So I think the Eagles will win this game. What
is your day looking like today, man? How's the schedule looking like as we get closer? It's Friday, 2 days away.
Yeah. So today's a pretty laid back. We're doing a show around 4:00, and then we're doing the opening for the Super Bowl for the day on Bourbon Street this afternoon. So the morning was light. Now we're walking around. You know, just getting the weather's been beautiful. I mean, we lucked out because if this was a week earlier, then we'd be shoveling snow. So, I mean, this is perfect weather. I mean, I can't be happier because I hate the cold. But so we're gonna walk around, you know, just get something to eat, and then start today's all afternoon stuff.
Did the family go with you, or did they stay back here in Tampa?
No, they have to go to school. You know, they have to take care of stuff over there. You know, they got to work out. You know, my wife just flew in yesterday, so we're walking around a little bit, getting some lunch. But other than that, no, this is a work trip. They keep me so busy that it's like pointless for them to come because I'll never be able to spend any time with them.
No, you guys are always running around like crazy. What about your daughter? What's she up to? Everybody wants to know, like, what sport? I saw something the other day where she scored a goal from like almost the halfway line. She's doing every other week. There's something phenomenal that she's doing on sports that's on social media. It's crazy.
No, I'm excited. She loves soccer and flag football. That's her sports. And right now, you know, luckily she's able to manage playing both of them. At one point, I'm assuming we're going to have to choose, or she'll have to choose. I'll be supportive either way, whatever she chooses. I love the soccer part because I get to coach her, but then the football side I love as well because now I can sit back and just be a dad. And you know, Matt Hernandez, her flag football coach, is elite. He's been coaching flag football, girls flag football since 2003. I didn't even know it existed in Alonzo High School. And he's now one of the assistants on the national team. So she's trying out for the U15 national team in a few months. So we don't. I don't know. I said I wanted a soccer player. I lost both boys to football, to kicking. I may lose my daughter to flag football too, but so who knows? As long as she's happy, she loves sports. Which for us, my wife played tennis at USF. You know, obviously I love sports, so we're so thankful that all 3 of our kids love sports. You know, because that's our passion. So we'll support them at whatever she does.
Last one from me, Martine. I'm actually here at USF. I'm actually calling the softball game here in a couple hours. I'm in the baseball booth right now doing the show. What about Nico, man? What's his mindset as he's getting closer and closer to the 2025 season? A lot of people, it looks like he'll probably get more responsibility this year with the kicker last year kind of moving on. What's his mindset? What's his work looking like right now as we get closer to next year?
Oh no, he's working for next year. He wanted to be the guy this year. Obviously, they had a senior that did the shorter field goals and the extra points. So his role was a difficult one because kicking off, obviously that's not the difficult part, but going in for 50 plus is when you don't have any rhythm of kicking the extra point or the shorter ones. So I thought he did a really good job, with the longer ones. So now the responsibility is on his shoulder, and he's excited about it. He's been wanting it. He was chomping up the bit last year to do it all. As a competitor, you want to do it all. And the nice thing is, Coach Goldich, he's like, we're going to take him slow. There's no need to put a true freshman out there to do everything. They manage his kick counts because back in the day they didn't. We kicked so much, and that's partly I think why my leg kind of wore out towards the end. And I think here they're doing a really good job of just managing his reps and making sure he stays healthy. The weight room stuff, the nutrition. I mean, it's changed so much. But he's fired up. He's ready. He loves USF. And we love what Coach Gold is doing, just that family atmosphere. And we're so happy and thankful that he's there, not because he's 20 minutes away from the house. That's a super bonus.
It helps too.
But that's huge. But what they're doing at USF, it's incredible. It reminds me back of the USF days of Coach Levitt, where they're building a family and they're going to build a powerhouse. And I just hope nobody snags up our coach, because usually that's what happens. But I think he loves Tampa and he'll be around. That's what I'm hoping.
The great Martin Gramatica chiming in from New Orleans. My brother, thank you so much. Enjoy lunch with your wife. Tell her I said hello. And have a great call on Sunday, and we'll see you back in Tampa before you know it, buddy. Safe travels.
Sounds good, bud. Talk to you soon. Take care, man.
Thank you, buddy. It doesn't get better than Martin Gramatica. I mean, look, he's outside. He's got a lot of things going on. Man, I'm so grateful for his friendship, his mentorship, and the ability for him to be able to come and join us on the program today. What beautiful weather there in New Orleans. You saw Martin there. I just want a good football game, right? I know I have to worry about the elements on Sunday, but I'm excited just for the whole week, right? All the news and all the people and everybody. It's going to be a good contest, man. It's so tough to pick. You could ask 100 people and you get 100 different opinions on what's going to happen in this game on Sunday, because it is so hard to go against the Kansas City Chiefs. Back-to-back champs. 3 in a row. Can they do it? I think they can. But if there is a team, and again, Ian said this earlier this week, if there is a team that you would build to go up against that team and to beat them, it's probably a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the best ways to defend against Patrick Mahomes is to keep his ass off the field. Don't let him get under center whatsoever. I know there's people that look at a guy like Travis Kelce and think like, oh, he's probably lost a step. He's just so smart. And you look at some of these teams and I know he didn't do as much against, Buffalo, but look at what he was able to do against Houston, against a decent defense. Like you knew what was coming. Great players. It doesn't matter what your game plan. They're still going to get theirs. And I truly believe that in this game, in order for Kansas City to win this game, he has to be a factor. Now, I'm not talking about 12 catches for a $165. He may get that. He's an all-time great. But I'm talking about third downs and fourth downs and red zones. That's why I like Kansas City in this game, because they know what it takes to win. And you're talking about a coach in Andy Reid that's an all-time great. Steve Spagnuolo is one of the greatest coordinators in the history of the National Football League. If they stop the run, they win this game. I think if Saquon gets his, I think they can still win, but it's going to be a dogfight. But you almost have to you have to focus on kind of the same way that they're focusing on keeping Mahomes off the field. I would try to run the football if I'm Kansas City too. Whether it's Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco. You saw Samaje Perine coming in at the end of the game and converting that last third down. We've seen a lot more Kareem Hunt this year, especially down the stretch, because Isaiah Pacheco, how crazy is that? Kareem Hunt, one of the best running backs all around in football, and then out, he was in Cleveland. You're like, it's probably done. And now he comes back to Kansas City, and he's their guy. But don't forget about Isaiah Pacheco. I don't look at so much of – I look at a couple of things. It's not just the regular season, right? Look back at last year's postseason. you got to look at the history with this team, because with Andy Reid, and you know how he holds things close to the vest, he doesn't divulge everything that he has when it comes to this offense in the regular season, in other games in the postseason. You saw it in that game against Buffalo, and you heard it from Greg Rousseau, one of their outside pass rushers. He's like, they were going to play there that we didn't see at all on tape this year. There's going to be something else. There's going to be a trick play. There's going to be, a short pass. There's going to be something that they do in this game that Philadelphia has never seen before. Now, what happens from that trick play? And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a trick play, quote unquote, where it's a double reverse flea flicker or Statue of Liberty or hook and ladder. It doesn't have to be that. Could be. But it could just be, a weird wildcat situation. It could be just one of those things where Travis Kelce throws the ball at the at the goal line, right? You just don't know what it could be. But if it does happen, how does that switch momentum? How does that affect the game as a whole? Like if they do a play like that and the play falls incomplete, you're like, maybe you lose something there. But what if it's like a Philly special, right? What if it's an onside kick like we saw the New Orleans Saints when they beat the Colts? Like it could be a play like that really is pivotal and kind of changing how the game is all around. I can't wait. My parents are going to be here this weekend. I don't see them very much. They're going to be in town. Tomorrow we'll hang out with them. And then Sunday we'll actually be here at USF, because if you're just joining us, I am here at USF inside the radio booth on the baseball field side. Turn it around, see the baseball field. I'll turn it around for you guys so you can see. Look at that. Look at the baseball field, man. As we get closer and closer to USF baseball, there'll be in action next week. Softball in action. They've already won 2 games yesterday. I'll be on the call at 4:30 today as USF takes on Michigan. Michigan's actually playing right now against Delaware. And Michigan coming into this weekend, number 22 in the country. They're playing their first game today against Delaware, and they're losing 6-1. Delaware scored 5 in the first, 1 right now in the top of the 4th. So the starter for Michigan, she only threw a third of an inning, 3 hits, 5 runs given up. So at 4:30 today, Michigan will play their second game, and they'll go against our USF Bulls, and we'll see how that whole thing shakes out, because you just never know. Could they be despondent and having trouble just overall, or will they respond in a big way after getting smacked up by Delaware here? Again, 4:30 today. If you want tickets, go usfbulls.com. Lightning with a big win last night as well. That's the kind of action that you want to see from our guys when they are faced with a team that knows what's going to happen. There was, I don't want to say a surprise, but Tuesday night with Ottawa coming off of a back-to-back against Nashville, you knew that the Lightning, if they put their foot on the gas pedal and they just kept it there, they just kept fighting and fighting and fighting, they were going to come away with the victory. That's exactly what they did. Thursday, Ottawa rested. They could sleep in the same room for the last couple of nights. All right, now what? And the Lightning were even more impressive in that game. And it was so crucial that the Lightning were to win those games, but to not win it in overtime. You didn't want any points going to Ottawa, because this Atlantic division is tight. As we speak right now, the Lightning are in 3rd in the division with 62 points, same amount of points as Ottawa, but they have 2 games in hand. They are tied with Buffalo with the least amount of games played in the division with 53. They're 6 points behind the Maple Leafs, who have a game in hand on them, and also 7 points behind the Panthers. They have 3 games in hand against the Florida Panthers. But yeah, it's one thing to have games in the hand, but you gotta make it happen. You have to win those games, or else it doesn't mean anything at all. 2 more games before they break for 2 weeks for the Four Nations face-off in action Saturday afternoon in Detroit against the Red Wings. That's a 1:00 start there. Then they go across the border against the Montreal Canadiens at 1:00 as well. Neither one of those games, I think, are on the local TV networks. I know this Saturday's game at 1, ABC, Sunday, NHL Network. I know the game Saturday is not going to be on FanDuel. Sunday could be, because NHL Network, sometimes you can do both. But yeah, pivotal. And will Anthony Cirelli play? Will Andrei Vasilevsky play back-to-back? We saw Brandon Halverson on the bench. Even though he was placed on waivers, he still wasn't claimed yet. he wasn't sent down. So he's still on the bench and waiting to hear where he is going to ply his trade in the near future, whether it's here with the Lightning, down in the AHL with the Syracuse Crunch, or with another NHL team. But the Bolts with 2 afternoon games this weekend, don't be surprised if Vasi plays both games. 1 o'clock starts. He's not going to play for 2 weeks. It's very rare that you see Vasi play games 2 days in a row, but when you have that kind of rest coming up after it, sometimes, those are the kind of adjustments that you have to make. All right, let's talk about one of the big stories here in the Tampa Bay area, and let's talk the latest in the Rays Stadium saga with our friend, County Commissioner Chris Latvala. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
All right, bud. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's kind of funny, and I know you won't pay yourself, but before you came on with our show, I'm taking credit. Everybody was looking at you as public enemy number one.
Yeah.
I was like, let's hear from this guy first. And the more we talked, and I was so pleasantly not surprised, but I was just so happy with our talk because I was so glad that you were able to speak on behalf of your constituents and everybody there, and just looking at it from a different viewpoint. And now I see you on the radio, and I'm just so happy that you're able to kind of get your voice out there and be able to speak on this conversation. Because, Chris, we see the article recently here with Mark Topkin and what Stu had to say at the owners' meetings, and it's just the latest thing where I'm trying to be optimistic, and I know you are too, because it's better for our region if baseball stays here. But now with these last things, I don't know if we have the money, or if I don't know if we have to spend the money. Like, it's just another thing. What is your gut telling you as we get closer? Do you think the Rays will pony up this money, or say they will, by March 31st?
Yeah, you were the first show that I was on. And since then, I've been on a ton of them. And, I'm a huge sports fan. And it's interesting that it's intersected with being in politics. I thought Stu's comments were baffling, and for months the Rays have said that they don't have the money. And now he's saying, we have access to the money. We have the money. We just need to decide if we want to go forward with it. So now he's kind of bragging that he, has the money. And which is baffling to me because they signed an agreement in July. And that whole interview with Topkin was just bizarre. I do remain optimistic because after doing your show, and I'm almost certain it was after doing your show, I talked with Commissioner Rob Manfred, and Rob Manfred is committed to Tampa Bay. He told me he was committed to Tampa Bay. He was the reason that I voted for the bonds. And, until Rob Manfred says otherwise, I trust him to have the backs of the baseball fans in Tampa Bay and Rays fans. And, Rob Manfred is not publicly going to bash Stu Sternberg. Stu Sternberg is one of his 30 bosses. But something that was interesting in the article yesterday, in the interview with Rob Manfred, is Rob Manfred said that he's spending an awful lot of time with Stu Sternberg, and which is kind of odd, that the commissioner would have to be spending, a lot of time with, one of his owners that's going through the stadium saga. And, and he was talking about how Stu has a lot of decisions that he needs to make, and a lot of tough decisions, and, things like that. And, I in my heart and in my gut, I don't think anything has changed in the last couple months. I don't believe that the Rays are going to go through with this deal, but I do believe that we'll have a new owner. And that does not come from Rob Manfred. He never said, that we'll have a new owner. But that's just reading the tea leaves and hearing from other people. I've heard that there are ownership groups in Tampa Bay that are interested in trying to buy the Rays. Unless that has changed in the last day or two, or in the last week, I think that's still the case. I know for certain that the Rays have approached people to buy equity in the team, because those people have told me that. And so, for Stu to now say, oh, the team's not for sale, I believe that's just a tactic that he's using, to try to maybe drum up support for, to sell the team. But I remain optimistic that the Rays will be in Tampa Bay. I'm not going to promise that they'll be in Pinellas County, because I think, once, March 31st happens and passes, anything can happen after that.
Chris, you know what I'm reading, and when I read things like I read in that article, I don't just read them on, all right, what does Jay Recher think? I read that and I put myself in your shoes. I put myself in Ken Welch's shoes. And the efforts put forth by the city council in St. Petersburg, as well as the Pinellas County commissioners, to come up with this money, to vote, to do all of this legwork, and then to have the guy that's supposed to be on the other side of this bill saying, we may have the money, but we don't know if we're going to invest it. I mean, slap in the face may be a little bit too strong of a term, but Chris, it's just like, I'm reading this and I'm like, I want to support Stu. I want to be like, hey guys, you're looking at this from the wrong perspective. But I'm reading this and I'm not no spring chicken. I wasn't born yesterday, but I know the efforts. Like, I know what you and the Pinellas County commissioners have put forth. I know the conversations that Ken Welch is attaching this whole thing to his legacy as the mayor of St. Pete. He has been on the forefront and the face of this whole deal. And then to have the owner of the team go, yeah, we have the money. Now we just have to decide whether we want to use it or not. I mean, did that kind of strike you in a way of like, come on, man, like that's not right.
On December 17th, when we voted for the bonds, I said that I didn't trust Stu Sternberg. And it's, I mean, I'm not sure that there are too many people left that trust him. Mm-hmm. And if he remains the owner, I'm not sure that he could go to another city, even if it's Tampa, and even if it's going to the Hillsborough County folks to try to get a deal. And because he's burned so many bridges, he had a deal in Tampa that wasn't in Ybor City that wasn't good enough for him. And that was a very good deal. And so even if it's, people are saying, oh, they're going to go to Orlando, and unless the definition of Tampa Bay has increased that much to encompass all of I-4, that's not going to happen. But so say that, okay, MLB gives Stu Sternberg permission to go talk to Orlando. Those folks now see what Stu Sternberg has left on the table, and they're going to have to pay over $1 billion for a stadium. And I can tell you firsthand that is going to take over 2 years to get across the finish line. And once he signs an agreement, he will ask for more money, because that's what he's done in the past. That's what he's doing now. And he will find some excuse and some reason why he needs more money. And because that's just his nature. That's just the way that he does business. And so, and I believe that the owners see that. Certainly MLB sees that. And so I think it's going to be impossible for him to remain the owner. And, unless his grand plan is to stay at the Trop and try to renegotiate a lease at the Trop, I think his only play that he's left to have, if he, reneges on this deal, is to sell the team.
Chris, do you sense that there has been a change since your hesitation on this deal? We talked about it months ago. Do you feel like, whether it's other commissioners or just people like in your area, are people, I don't want to say coming around, because we don't want it to be, but do you feel like more people's eyes are open to kind of the way that this deal is really coming down, like becoming more pessimistic, or just kind of like, just like this exhale? Do you feel that?
I mean, since December, we haven't talked about it on the county commission. Mm-hmm. We're still in hurricane recovery mode. Right. And we were in hurricane recovery mode even then. Mm-hmm. but we did this, we got this across the finish line, in large part because of Mr. Manfred, because we didn't want to have this on the table. But it, we haven't talked about it. And I think a lot of people's attitude is that, there's nothing left to discuss with the Rays. I'm still talking about it just because I'm, frankly ticked off at Stu and, for how he's acting. And, for a while, it was a 49-day delay, and the cost overruns were going to be $200 million. And now it's, oh, well, we have the money, but let's see if we want to spend it or not. And so, I think there always was going to be, he was always going to try to have a way out, once it got down to the finish line, because I think deep down he doesn't have the money. He wants his other owners to see, oh, I'm one of you, but I think deep down he knows that he's not, and it's not a slam against him. He has more money than I will ever have. The day that he sells the team, he's going to be a billionaire, but I'm not sure that he can write a $700 million check next week.
So why doesn't he just sell? I mean, it's hard because it's just speculation, but is it just the stature, you think, Chris? It's just one of those things say that you're an MLB owner, because he doesn't seem like, if I was like this and I didn't seem like I was very invested, I would just be like, yeah, just sell the team. I'm going to go do something else. I don't know why he still hangs around then if this is the way he operates. I
mean, that's a great question. I mean, he's in a club of 29 other people in the world, owning a Major League Baseball team. That's an incredible club that I will never be a part of. And I'm sure that there's some pride involved, but at the end of the day, do you want to, your legacy to be that you would never be able to get a deal done, and I don't think that Major League Baseball will necessarily take over the Rays, but that's happened before with the Expos. Right. And so, I don't think they're going to want, perpetual limbo with the Rays and with the stadium. And it's not because the money's not there. The money's sitting on the table. It's now his attitude is, do I even want to write the check? And, and if you're one of his colleagues, do you want to have an owner that has that attitude? When 29 other people can just write the check if they want to.
What did you think of the deal when the whole Montreal thing came to pass? Because I remember they asked me, what do you think? We were in a meeting and they're like, what do you think, baseball guy? And I was just like, I don't see how this is going to work. Yeah. Everyone's like, oh, what did you think when that whole thing came down a couple years ago?
I mean, I thought it was baffling, but, for the people that say that Major League Baseball will just let him do whatever he wants, the people that will have to approve Stu Sternberg to look at another market, or will have to approve Stu Sternberg to sell the team to somebody that will look in another market, have already told Stu Sternberg no publicly once. They literally laughed at him when he did the Montreal deal. And so he didn't get what he wanted then. And so, who's to say that these people will let him go to Orlando? Who's to say that they'll let him sell to somebody who will take the team to Orlando, which, by the way, Orlando is a smaller media market than Tampa Bay is. And so, the owners want to have two expansion teams. They want to get paid with expansion fees. They don't want to deal with another owner that is just trying to relocate so he can enrich his pockets. And these owners, by the way, several of them give Stu Sternberg a check every year through revenue sharing. And that money goes directly into his pocket. And so, those are the people that are going to be voting on whether or not he gets to move. And in order for him to be able to move, number one, he has to get MLB's permission to even talk to somebody outside the market. So he has to do that first. And then number two, once he has an agreement, he has to have 23 other owners approve the move. And, So, that's a tall order. And the Tampa Bay, what's going on here in Tampa Bay and what went on in Oakland a year or two ago is two separate issues. Oakland never, Fisher and Oakland never had a signed agreement with the new stadium, and it was never funded by the local government. And so they would have an owner, MLB and the other owners would basically be giving an out to a guy that had signed an agreement that was fully funded by the local government. And so I just don't see that happening.
So what happens then if March 31st comes around, Chris, and then Stu just comes in, the Rays just go and they just put their hands up like this? I mean, are they on the hook for anything because they signed this agreement, right? And you guys put all this legwork into, we're going to do this. We got the bed tax here, all these things. We're going to the bonds, blah blah blah, this and that. And then if he just goes, yeah, we don't have it. Is there like a breach of contract thing? Like,
yeah, I mean, there might be some legal remedies. The bonds were not financed; they were approved, but they weren't financed until the Rays actually put in the money. There's some fees that have been incurred by the county. And I'm sure that there are fees that have been incurred by the city. I can tell you that, he's not going to be able to come back and try to renegotiate things. On March 31st, I'm going to tell the county administrator who works for the county commission that, tell Mr. Manfred that, you're not going to be negotiating with Stu Sternberg. You'll negotiate with a new owner, but you're not going to negotiate with a guy who has, backed out of an agreement that he signed. And
so you guys both meet that day, Chris? Does the city council and the county commissioners both meet on March 31st?
I'm not sure, but I talk to our administrator regularly. And I know that our administrator has talked to Major League Baseball and has talked to Mr. Manfred. And so, I think that we would certainly be open to another, if there was another owner, we certainly would talk to them. But I don't know if Stu just wants more money, there's nothing left to discuss. We have done our due diligence. And, if there's cost overruns, number one, he agreed to them. But number two, okay, show us how much money you want and itemize them to show how much money you're out. Because part of those.
So I'm sorry, I want to just clarify that real quick. So he signed the deal, cost overruns, that will be something we take care of. But if he erroneously said that and was like, hey, I screwed up, I might need 50 million or 75 million more. If he was more transparent about that, do you think it would be more palatable on both sides?
But they would have to give something back. So,
but I'm just saying the fact that he doesn't even say it, like you said, he doesn't even itemize it. So if he's just like, oh, it costs more. Well, how much is it? And he doesn't tell you. You're like, all right, we're supposed to just take you at your word then?
Right. Yeah. Okay. I mean, their request is they want more money. Well, how much more money do you want? What is the reason? Well, just give me more money. That doesn't work. Because they will always want more money. Part of the reason why they agreed to pay for the cost overruns was because of the land development deal that they're getting the profits from on the other part of the deal. And so if they're not going to cover the cost overruns, then let's renegotiate the land development deal that was a sweetheart deal that the city of St. Pete gave them.
Yeah, and and as well as I do, I think that's the crux of the entire thing. That's the crux right there, because if Stu sells the team, he still has his fingers in everything going on there. So it would have been easy to rip up the deal and do another deal. But if you rip up that entire deal, the city nor the county is probably going to allow that same type of thing to be put in there. Maybe a version of it, but it ain't going to be, as you just alluded to, the same sweetheart deal that he got the first time.
And if you remember when they were firing letters back and forth, during the delays and saying, oh, it's gone up, or now the stadium's going to, because y'all delayed 21 days, the stadium's going to be pushed back a year. One of the letters that they sent us said that they had spent $50 million on the stadium. So right before the vote that we took in December, I asked our attorney to request from them evidence that they spent $50 million. So the Rays, to their credit, sent back an email showing, the expenses for their stadium. Well, it added up to $11 million, not $50 million. So I have no clue what the other $39 million that they said that they spent on the stadium. And so if they say, the range of their cost overruns has been anywhere between $100 million and $200 million. Well, we had a stadium expert working with us that that has dealt with like 25 stadium deals over the last couple of decades around the country. And one of the questions I asked him was, during all of your experience, have you ever seen a 49-day so-called bond delay or 49-day construction delay result in a $200 or $100 million cost overrun? And he started laughing. He said, no, I've never seen that. And so what I think it is the raised budgeting, the raised lost revenue, which I completely agree that they have probably lost revenue because of the hurricane and playing in Tampa. That the county's not paying them for that. That's on them. But if they're not going to show their work, there's nothing to discuss. And even if they do, it's not our responsibility. And that they agreed to pay for the cost overruns. They agreed to pay for their cost of the stadium. And now they're coming back to the citizens. And by the way, if the county doesn't pay for it, the only other option is the city of St. Pete, which, by the way, got hit by the very same hurricane that tore the roof off the Trop. And so basically they're going to hurricane victims, asking them to raise their taxes to pay a billionaire, which let's see how that works. And so Stu's trying to get sympathy, and people are not going to sympathize for a billionaire.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I interviewed him at FanFest last year, and he was, saying, I'm taking a loss of my P&L this year. And I'm just like, your payroll's $90 million.
Right.
And when people, and this is before the hurricanes, people are struggling to buy eggs and to put gas in their car. I'm like, and I said it the next day, and I looked at him too, and I was like, that's the last thing people want to hear from a person that owns a professional sports franchise, that they're having trouble on their P&L statement. I'm like, I don't want to hear that.
He bought the team for $200 million. If he sells it tomorrow, he will make at least $1 billion. I'm sorry. I have zero sympathy for somebody in that situation. I'm all for capitalism. I'm all for him making a buck, but don't come to the taxpayers with hat in hand crying a sob story when you could sell the team tomorrow and make at least $1 billion, if not more.
Yeah, and the other thing too, you said about the stadium. I actually, when I had Colleen Wright on from the Tampa Bay Times, she said the same thing. Like the person with the stadium, he was like, "Yeah, I don't see that," and we understand. Like that's the whole thing. That for anybody that is like still in support of this whole thing, like on the Rays and on the Stu side, they're like, "Well, you guys got to understand the hurricane hit." Like, yeah, we get that, but there's also like, all right, well, you're gonna have to keep moving forward. And the guy that everybody was like, all right, he's the stadium expert on this. Like everybody understood that, like he's the connoisseur of things like this. And this guy said, yeah, I don't know if the overrun's going to be that much.
Right.
And everybody's kind of like agreed to that. And then that's the only argument that you have.
And so, and if the agreement is okay, it's not 200 million. And if it's 50 million, what billionaire can absorb a $50 million cost overrun when they're going to be making hundreds of millions of dollars off of the development deal? Like that just doesn't jive with me. I don't understand that.
And even if he said like, all right, let's say it is 50, Chris, and he does say like, I'm going to have trouble doing this. You may believe it. You may not believe it. But at least he would tell you that it's 50. Can you do 20? The city does 20 and I do 10 or something. But the fact that like, it's almost like a kid asking his parent, hey, I'm going to the movies. Can I have some money? How much do you need? I don't know. Just give me a bunch of money. Well, how much do you need?
Yeah, I need more.
No, I need more than what you're going to give me. I don't even know what you're going to, I don't even know the amount. What kind of movie are you going to? Are you going to the movie in the States? Like, gosh.
And if it was, another owner locally, like, Venick, which is, the classic example, or even like a Glazer or, a Steinbrenner, somebody like that is in the same situation as him. the attitude may be different, but Stu has had such a history of the way that he deals with stadiums. It's just like, dude, like we've been through this for 15 years, and this is the play that you're going to make. You're going to say, if you don't get what you want, baseball's in danger in Tampa Bay. You've already made that play. Now you're going to ask for more money. And when that doesn't happen, this is what you're going to do. And it's just the same, show literally on repeat the last 15 years with him. And it's exhausting. And, he's run out of people that he can deal with, because and it's sad because on the field, he's a very successful owner. The front office people that he's had and has currently, the baseball operations people, they're brilliant. And he's brought 2 pennants, but it's just like, dude, you're incapable of getting a stadium deal finalized because you can't get out of your own way, because you're trying to suck every nickel out of the deal when that's not, like, politicians are not, like, we're trying to protect tax dollars. We're not trying to enrich you. And when you don't have the goodwill that he hasn't created, it just, like, people are not going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
What's the next step, Chris, before I let you go? What's the next step for the Pinellas County Commissioners in this deal? You're just waiting, right?
Yeah. And I think after that, it's going to really be in Major League Baseball's hands, and if I had to predict, I say that we have a new owner, and I think it'll be sooner rather than later. I think it's something that could, and I may be wrong about this, but I will be very surprised if this deal does not go through. I will be very surprised if Stu is the owner this time next year.
Wow, that is definitely something we'll keep an eye on. Pinellas County Commissioner Chris Latvala. Yeah. Chris, I'm so glad that we've gotten to know each other, and man, it's just been so great to be able to kind of unpack this entire thing, because at the end of the day, like, this is about the people that live in our area, right? Like, as much as it's our baseball team and Stu Sternberg, like, this affects everybody, and baseball staying here benefits everyone, but it's got to be, it can't just totally screw over the people that live here and the people that make the decisions. So thanks so much for your time, man. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon, buddy.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Chris Latvala, man, he is all over it. Pinellas County Commissioner. And this is part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast, to be able to have these type of conversations, right? I want the race to stay here. I want to even believe Stu, but it's just tough, man. It is tough. And, that's a bold statement that he just made, right? I think that we'll have a new Rays owner sooner rather than later. And I can't say I disagree with him because of this whole thing. I mean, just reading some of that stuff, I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm not it's cloudy every single day. Oh my God, I'm afraid to walk across the street. But it's like, man, you read some of these statements from Stu, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be some person that understands, like, reading between the lines. You don't have to be some CIA operative, that just doesn't sound right. It doesn't ring true with somebody that is dealing in good faith. It doesn't take a lot to realize that, like, when somebody's BSing you and when somebody's genuine and tells you the truth. So, man, I hate that we're at this point. I really do. But Chris broke it down for you. And, like, all these people that, like, work together, the city, the county, and now to make a comment like, we got the money, we may have the money, but we don't know if we really want to use it. Really? We had a celebration at Tropicana Field last year, right? You had city and county officials coming together, putting all of this work, bonds, dealing with the hurricane, and we're still like, well, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if that's really going to give you a ton of good faith. I don't know if that's going to give you a ton of people that are really going to support you in whatever endeavor that you put forth. I hope it all works out again sooner rather than later, because the Rays need to stay in the Tampa Bay area, whether it's on the Pinellas side, the Hillsborough side. I don't care. It just needs to stay here. This is one of the best markets in the entire country. And if they did baseball right, I'm telling you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Jeffrey Vinnick. And I know people want it to be Vinnick. That'll never happen. But if the Rays were run correctly, it'll be one of the best franchises in all of sports. If you galvanize this area the same way that hockey has, you're talking about a baseball hotbed. You're talking about a place that already has tons of high school players that are going to play D1 ball. You got a ton of professional athletes that are from here in the Tampa Bay area, right? That call the 813 home, the Pete Alonsos, the Kyle Tuckers of the world, right? You have former professional athletes here from every sport. If you invested in baseball the right way here in Tampa Bay, I'm telling you, it'd be one of the best teams, one of the best franchises in all of professional sports. But we need better leadership. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. Only a 90-minute show today because I got to get ready for the broadcast here in a couple hours. I am here at USF. I'm here in the baseball booth. I'm going to be on the call for softball at about 4:30 today. USF and Michigan. Again, go usfbulls.com. Go get your tickets. The first ever. It's the inaugural lacrosse game across the street there at Corbett Stadium. I can't wait to go check that out. Basketball, good stuff there. Go usfbulls.com for the men and the women. Support Coach Fletch and Coach Jose Fernandez. Great show like always. Thank you to Lady Evil. Nick in Sarasota says Birds by 6. Yellow Gatorade. Beth. It should be fun. Again, I got the Chiefs Sunday. I'm going to go with the score. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as everybody else says. I'm going to go 30. It'll be 30. 31-28. Kansas City Chiefs. Elite Harrison Butker field goal is going to be the factor in that one. I will be here Sunday for the softball game, USF against Florida. That's a top 2-3 team in the nation with my family. So if you're here, come on by, say hello, and then going to be watching the Super Bowl like everybody else. I'll be back on Monday. No Lightning home games for a couple of weeks, so no more shows at Amalie Arena. So the majority of the shows for the next couple of weeks will be back at the headquarters there at my house. So again, follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, everywhere. Like and subscribe on YouTube. A big thank you to all of our guests today, Ira Kaufman, Martin Gramatica, and Chris Latvala. Everybody have a safe, a happy, a healthy weekend, and we'll see you Monday right here on the Jay Recher Podcast. I am gone.